dating in LA is tough as it is. Dating as a lesbian in LA is extra tough. Dating as a transgender lesbian in LA, I might as well just quit and just buy some cats. Like, let's just do it. And that would be tough because in most cities, if you had cats, that's how you get the girlfriends. But in LA, everyone has a dog. So, anyway, and I'm so bad. I'm so bad at dating. I'm so awful at it. In real life, when I go on dates or I meet people, I can't tell if they're into me. Like, I'm just the worst at having like I'm good at gaydar. I'm not good at hitting on me-dar. I'm convinced at some point in my life I'm gonna be like standing in front of another woman. We're gonna be in white dresses. We're gonna be saying vows, and I'm just gonna like lift my veil and go, "Hey, I know this is on me for not bringing it up until now. Are we on a date? Just let me. My friends are here. It's awkward if we're not. Just let me know what's happening." We're like signing documents. I'm like, I think she's flirting with me. What do you guys think? But yeah, so I'm terrible at it. So I do a lot of online dating, and when I online date, I'm like way more upfront and way more just like we met on OkCupid, we met on Tinder, we're dating. Like, that's what it is. Because for a while I was dating on Tinder, and I was dating a lot of women who had they had just come out of the closet as like bi or lesbian or whatever, but they didn't tell me that until like the second or third date or like whatever. So I was on a date one time with a woman, and on the first date she was like, by the way, she goes, "You're the first woman I ever dated." And I was like, oh, that's gonna be fun. And she goes, "I thought you'd be like a really good bridge into dating women because you..." Yeah, I was there too. Yeah. She goes, because she used to be a man. I'm like, okay, that's not how that works. She goes, so I thought you'd be like a good bridge, because you used to be a man, now you're a woman, so I thought you'd be like a good... I'm like, sweetie, I am not entry-level queer dating. Like, if anything, I am expert-level queer dating. Like, sex with me is going to be like an escape room for you. I don't mean like you can leave anytime, it's a metaphor. I just mean we're gonna get in there and you're like, this looks like one thing but act like something else, and I need to call a friend who's good at puzzles. Like, that's gonna be the scenario. So, as a result of experiences like that, I have taken a very proactive, blunt strategy for online dating, which is that if I see somebody, because like I'll get some people and their profile will list their sexuality as hetero-flexible. I don't date those anymore. Like, I'm sorry, you can be that. That is, I'm not judging you, I'm not gatekeeping, but you're not allowed to date me if you haven't already had at least one awkward conversation with your dad. That's again, I'm not gatekeeping, because if you start dating me, you're gonna have to have a second awkward conversation with your dad. Like, no, Dad, she's a woman, just trust me. All right, so I started dating a woman last year who her profile listed her as just queer. Like, that was her sexuality. And like, I've dated a lot of women who identify as queer. That's totally fine. Like, my ex was queer. It's fine. Like, that's like her. That she's not bi. She's not pan. She's just queer. Fine. I'm into that. But I just to be careful, because her profile did mention like interest in men, and so I just commented. I go, hey, like while we're chatting, because she hit me up first. I was like. There's not a nice way to say this, but I was basically like, how queer are you? Like, if we're talking, honestly, like I was just like, have you dated women before? Have you like got experience with women? Or like, is this like a thing you're testing out? Because I've been hurt a lot trying to deal with that. And she said to me, she goes, I started with women, I dated men some long term, but I prefer women, it's fine. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm good with that. So we started dating, and we got very intense very fast, which really supported her theory that she was queer. Like, it was a lot of U-hauling real quickly. It was a lot of like, we like had a first date that lasted 8 hours, and most of that was kissing, and it was fantastic. Like, seriously, 20 minutes into the first date, we started making out, it was fantastic. And it was like really cool, and we got like really intense really fast, and we saw each other a lot the first few weeks, where basically whenever the two of us had a night free, we would just get together, and like if I had a show in her area, I'd stop by her place afterwards, we'd make out and hang out and fool around, and it was great. We had this really good thing going on for a while. And then about a month into it, like suddenly like she started to get like really weird about things, where like I noticed that we've been dating for about a month, and like she wouldn't pose with me for any pictures at all. Like, we were on things, and she like always had a different reason for why she wouldn't. And at first I was like, okay, what is pretty new, so maybe she just want to do whatever. So then also, Pride came up last year, and to give you a little bit of backstory, I was physically assaulted on the way to Pride in 2014. Bad memory, anyway, but I had not been to Pride since then, and so last year I was finally available to go, and I was like confident in going. I was very excited on going, and she didn't want to go. And she's like, oh, I don't like crowds or whatever, and I don't want to be on. So I'm like, okay, if she has crowd anxiety, fine. And then I went to Pride, and like she didn't go, and what she did instead of going to Pride was play D&D with her friends. Like that's what she did, which like I love D&D, but let's, there's other weekends for that. Like it's fun. And then also, like, she's like, well, I can't go to Pride because I'm going to play D&D. And then, like, the thing is, they didn't play D&D until, like, later that afternoon. Like, they played it in the evening. I'm like, you totally could have gone to Pride. And then she's like, oh, I don't like crowds. I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's the explanation. And then, the reason why that's not an okay explanation is that she was then telling about all of her plans to fly to Disney World in Florida in July. Because where you go to avoid crowds is a theme park in the middle of the summer. Do you also hate hot days and corporate sponsorship? Because that's like the other reason you can explain not to go to Pride. So we actually had a bit of an argument about it, because once I went there and she wasn't there, I was like really sad. So I'm like, hey, it took a lot for me to go to this, and it was a personal victory, and I really wanted to kiss you on Santa Monica Boulevard in the middle of Pride, where it was like exciting and like it was like a victory thing, Like I fought back. I'm no longer afraid, and like here's a woman that I'm into, and we're at Pride. So and then she got mad at me for putting that on her. And that was a weird fight that we had that she described as our wires getting crossed. I was like, oh, I feel like it's like you're ashamed of your girlfriend. But okay, yeah, wires getting crossed is fine too. And then she hated that I used the word girlfriend at that point because we hadn't used it yet, which turned out that was a huge mistake on my part. Because I called her my girlfriend, and then she called me for a 3-hour conversation how we weren't ready for labels yet. And at one point she said to me, she goes, I just didn't realize labels meant that much to you. And I was like, sweetie, I paid a judge in California $430 to legally declare me a woman. So yeah, labels mean a little bit to me. Just a smidge. And it was kind of like, well, if we're not, that's not where we're going. Like, it's fine if you're not ready for that term yet. I totally understand comfort, but like, I'm not going to be in a we're never going to have labels kind of thing, especially with someone who won't take a fucking picture with me. But anyway, so then a week later, we talked about it, and we like kind of made up for our fight or whatever, and then she tells me that she has just come out to her ex-boyfriend. And I was like, oh, I thought you were out as queer already, and that you had been out since you were in high school, but you had dated men. And she goes, oh no, I came out in high school to my mom, and she said no. Which, like, that is sad. That is, like, awful, and I sympathy for her. I'm not saying that to make fun of her, but that's, like, the story she told me. And so then she had, like, dated men after that, because she's like, well, I guess I have to do this. And that's, like, tragic, and I'm, like, not judging her. But, like, that is information that a bitch needed when she asked you, how queer are you, before our first date. So she understood where you're coming from, because that's why you didn't want to fucking go to Pride, because you're not out. Like, tell me that, so that I don't feel like I'm not, like, I would totally get that and we could have that conversation, but instead it was, I don't like crowds. Like, so then we like talked, and then she talked about how her ex, when she told him that she was a lesbian, now she's using the word lesbian, not even using queer anymore, she's saying like, I am a lesbian, and I'm like, me too, so this is gonna be fine. She starts talking about how he asked her about women in her phone, like friends of hers, like, is that your girlfriend now or whatever, because she had told him that she was seeing a woman, and then she's like, no, this is my friend or whatever. And so I just went, how come there's not any pictures of me on your Instagram? Like, if like someone's going through it, like I'm not even there as a person to be seen. And then she goes, well, I find that kind of stuff trivial. Like, well, that's not really something you say to someone that you're in a relationship with. Like, that is so that was a weird moment. And then we actually ended up having a fight over July 4th weekend, where that kind of came up again, and I didn't prepare a story well enough, sorry. So I ended up breaking up with her on July 4th weekend over all these issues, because we just kept having the same fight over and over again, and I finally was like, hey, you are not in a place where you can be with me for as long as we've been together and for as intense as this has been. That's the thing, like she would put walls up for like how serious we could get, but then when she wasn't telling me she didn't want to be serious, she would suddenly get really serious. Like she would want to hang out all the time, or she would like text me like, I'm thinking about you. It was like really sweet, but it was so many mixed signals. And I started to realize, oh, this is a person who was struggling with her sexuality, her identity, and like wasn't ready for what was happening, but also didn't want to run away from it. So then we had this weekend, this week and a half period, where I went to Portland for a comedy festival, and then when I was the Monday I was flying back to LA, she was flying to Florida to go to Disney World. So we were both in the sky at the same time. Like I was landing, she was taking off. I forgot to tell you this detail. So I'm doing great. There was a guy that she was staying with in Florida who was like taking her to Disney World with him and like letting her stay at his place, and like she'd known him for years, and she's talking about him, and I finally stopped and said, you know this guy wants to fuck you, right? Like this guy is like, and I didn't mean it like in a actually I didn't say it that brutally. That sounds very like, I was like, this guy is into you. This guy is flying you out to Florida to stay with him, to take you to Disney World. Like this guy is into you. And she was like, no, you're being ridiculous. Like you're being over it. So then I felt insecure. I'm like, okay, now maybe maybe I am being like a jealous girlfriend or whatever. So I was like, I'm sorry that I brought that up. Fine, whatever. So then I'm in Portland, and like we got back together after the breakup. We like worked through some stuff. So then we had not clearly. So I am in Portland, and we're being super flirty. Like it's just a lot of stuff happening, and I'm this person. I'm obnoxious. I'm sorry. We were this person where, because I'm only going to see her for a week and a half, I'm so embarrassed to tell you this detail, but I started counting the amount of times that I thought about kissing her, so that when we got back together, we could kiss that many times. Like, yeah. Well, yeah. It didn't work out. Because by Monday when I left Portland, we were at 36. Like we were at that many, and like it was cute because like she was playing along. Like at one point we were talking, and then she would start like she would add a number because like it became a running gag. Like she would say something cute, and I would like give her the number we were at. And then at one point she started like at one point I was like 13, tee, and like 20 minutes later she'd go 14. I'm declaring it. I'm like okay, sweet. So it was like a fun game, and like so then. She goes to Florida, and like I make arrangements like, hey, I'll pick you up at the airport next Sunday when you come back. And she's like, cool. I come back, she goes to Florida, and then we don't talk again for the rest of the week. And I text her like, hey, what's going on? And she's like, oh, I went to the park and I didn't take my phone. Like, really? You went to Disney World and you didn't take your phone? Like, okay, it's like I wanted to be in the moment. I'm like, okay, okay, maybe you did, I don't know, but did you leave your phone in California for the whole week? Because she didn't text me all week. And then a really weird complication of the story is that then that Friday night, I ended up going to the emergency room because I thought I had a blood clot in my leg. And that's a long story on its own thing. But basically, I thought I was dying, and I like was by myself in the ER in Burbank, and I was like waiting to be seen by somebody. And so I'm texting her, like letting her know, like, hey, I went to urgent care. They told me it was a blood clot. Go to the ER. I'm at the ER, and I'm completely alone. I'm like sobbing. And she like finally she calls me and she's talking me like through it a little bit, and like things are okay. And then like I go back to the back, and I had all these tests done, and then they determine that it's not a blood clot, that it's just like a bad sprain or something. Anyway, so I go home and I text her when I'm leaving the hospital, like, hey, I was just cleared. They said it's not a blood clot. I was 100% positive that's not a blood clot. I'm fine, so I'm good. She doesn't text me back for an hour. Like, I will tell you this, if I was dating anybody and like they told me they were in the ER and I was in a different city, not only would I be like waiting by the phone to hear back from them, I'd probably be buying fucking plane tickets to get back to wherever they were, because I'd be like that terrified. That's the kind of person that I am. Again, I also counted the amount of kisses I wanted to have, so maybe not the best judge of behavior, but still, like, so I text her, and all she says when she texts back was, oh, hey, good. That's it. That's the last I hear from her that night. Like, I don't hear anything else. Like, hey, I'm sorry you went through that. I'm glad you're okay. Just, oh, hey, good. So then I don't hear from her all day Saturday, nothing. And then, like, Sunday is the day of picking her up at the airport. And I text her that morning, like, hey, do you still need a ride tonight? And she goes, yeah, unless you're busy. And I'm like, no, I'm not busy. Like, we made plans, so I'm going to pick you up. So I go and I pick her up at the airport, and I drive her from the airport back to Hollywood, and from LAX to Hollywood, and I am talking to her, and she's being like really quiet and like really sad, and she tells me that a friend of hers died last week, And that's why she's being so like sad and standoffish. So I'm like, okay, well, I totally get that. I have been through grief. I get it. Like that's why. And then in my head, I go, that's why she's being so weird and cagey. Like her friend died, so I totally feel sympathy or whatever. And she's talking about how nice her friend's family was in Florida to her and how great that was. And then I'm like, okay, so I'm being an insecure idiot. I'm being an asshole, whatever. So I take her home and then I drop her off at her door. And she goes, okay, so we should hug goodnight. And I'm like, yeah, of course. So I hug her goodnight. She didn't want to kiss or anything. I'm like, fine, I get that. You're going through a lot. So then I drive home. And then I get home and I text her and I say, hey, I'm home safely, because that's the thing we do. And then she calls me and she goes, hey, so I can't see you anymore. And I was like, what's going on? And she goes, well, my friend died last week and I'm just in a really bad place right now. And I'm not in a good place to date. I've been here before. I know that I can't be a good person to date, so I have to let you go. And it's like a sad thing. And so now I'm like really feeling sad, but I'm also like, I understand. I wish that I was somebody you could like feel like could be a rock for you, but I get that like, if I'm not, okay. About a month or so later, I start dating again. And I go on a first date with somebody and I'm like at one point, like she had been like a regular comedy show, so I had texted her at one point while we were like still in this month, where I was like, because there was a show that I was gonna be on that she was gonna be at, and I was like, hey, I actually canceled that show and we booked another show because I didn't want to make you have to see me and I want to let you deal with I want you to have your space or whatever. So I'm like being really conscious of the fact that like there's some painful stuff happening. So then about a month later I go on a first date and it goes really well and I'm like, you know what, I'm feeling like better. I'm feeling like a little bit like wistful, and I go, I just want to see how she's doing, because if her friend died, I want to know if she's doing okay. And so I go on her Facebook page and there's all these posts about how she's moving to Florida. And I look at her relationship status, and it says, in a relationship. And I was like, and the name of the person, I'm not gonna name the name, but the name of the person seemed very androgynous. I was like, oh, is that a man or a woman? And then I clicked on the profile, and it's the dude in Florida. It is the dude in Florida that I had said to her a month before she left for Florida, this guy is into you and wants to be with you. And she had told me I was crazy. And then she was in it. But here's the thing. The day that he had posted on his page, because it's on the public feed, that they were in a relationship was the Saturday after I had been in the ER. Which was the day before I picked her up at the airport. Which means not only did she cheat on me, she used me for a lift. I have been used for sex, I have been used for money, but I have never been used as an airport ride before. Like, the only good thing about this story is that I am now off the hook for giving anybody else an airport ride ever again in my life. Like, right? Like, I had a friend ask for a ride last week. I was like, no, it's a trigger and you should know better. But yeah, so that's my story. That's wires crossed. Thank you.